Salma Hayek gets off the plane. She said, "I'm Salma Hayek."
Watching these films, and they're thinking, wow, I could do this for a job.
Getting a movie made is really hard.
What do they do? Like, where do you start?
Welcome to the show. I think this is our very first episode, having an actual guest here. Today we have Aaron Syrett. Sorry,
it doesn't matter.
Do you know the origin of your last name? Is it?
So my grandfather told me it was French.
It's not French.
It's not even close. I've kind of done. I haven't done my genealogy or my DNA, whatever.
Yeah.
But looking in genealogy, I haven't got. We're just straight up colonists. We're just British.
Just British.
Just straight.
Yeah,
up.
that's what I was thinking you were gonna say. You're like, it's really popular in, and you're gonna name a foreign country. And you're like Bryce in Utah. And I was like, okay, yeah.
So you have experience in video production.
Yes.
Let's get into this a little bit. I think so. Obviously, home studio, and I think it's been an interesting thing to navigate where we're setting up lights, we're setting up cameras, we're doing all this stuff, and you already have these predetermined like settings in your head, like, hey, turn off these lights, set this light to this, blah blah blah. So what we're going to do is in this episode we're going to dive into kind of your experience, understand you, and then understand how you got started to essentially have the knowledge that you have now.
Right.
I think college, we talked about college in our very first intro episode. If there's a college student out there that wants to get into video production and this type of stuff, like what do they need to know? If someone is in mid-career and they want to change something, what are the things that they need to know? Right. So that's kind of like the goal of all this.
Cool.
Yo, wait, so if you're not a video like, what would you call yourself?
Well, no, when you said that, it's still...
You hesitated.
Video production?
It hurts me. So,
okay.
It doesn't hurt me. It took me a long time to go. I do not do video. I'm a filmmaker.
Oh, yes.
I went to film school.
Okay.
I worked in the film industry.
Okay.
But really, in the past 10, 15 years, we started shooting on video like everybody else.
Oh, sure.
So and now I do work as a video producer, a video creative. So that is my job. So yes.
Okay.
So, but it took a while to get there because I was arrogant and I shouldn't have been, because it's now the standard.
Okay.
And it's now everybody has access to it, right? And I love that.
What do you mean by that when you say everyone has access?
So when I was growing up, like I would watch Spielberg movies, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, we can do this as a career. And my gateway as a kid, even video cameras were like 300 pounds and not accessible to consumers.
Oh, yeah.
Only TV stations had them, right? There wasn't, you could get an 8mm camera still, but you couldn't really do audio.
Oh, right.
And film was expensive. And so just the entry to market now in probably the past 10 years has just been amazing for kids. Like, I would have killed to have all this access. Like this back when I was, in college, would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The whole setup that we currently have.
Hundreds of thousands.
In our basement down here. Yeah.
So
for less than, I don't know, probably like 2,000 or 3,000, I think, maybe,
right,
give or take.
Yeah, I think under 3K, I think, for all this stuff. Right. And this is entry level stuff, right? We could go hardcore and get like super nice cameras, and one camera itself could be well over $2,000. Right.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
And I would argue, true. And I always want to shoot on the nicest camera.
Oh, of course.
Give me an RE every single day or a red. But really,
are those types of cameras?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I don't know.
If the content's good enough, the camera doesn't matter.
It's true.
It just doesn't.
It's true. Matter. That's why audio podcasts still work.
Yeah.
No. So okay, you're a video producer.
Yeah. And now I'm a corporate guy.
You're a corporate guy now.
I'm a corporate guy now.
You are. I don't want to say were, because I don't want to take that title away from you. You are also a filmmaker. So thinking about someone who, as Colton's saying, never done this before. They're like you, however many years ago. We're not going to give that away to anyone on the audience. Watching these films, and they're thinking, wow, I could do this for a job. What do they do? Like, where do you start?
Well, I started as a young kid, as a child actor.
Yeah.
And then when I was making money as a child, doing plays and movies, and I tried football, I tried baseball. I just wasn't athletic, right? So my parents were like, let's try the arts, and I loved it, and I got paid as a kid, and then and I just grew up around all this technology, and and I'm like, this is really cool. And I started getting older, but I started getting less acting jobs, and I wasn't the cute little redhead kid. They wanted actual talent.
Oh, okay.
And not say
no.
I didn't have talent, and not just say I didn't have talent. I say I could have had all the talent I wanted, but I didn't work at it, right?
Sure.
I moved to LA to be an actor, and when because I was booking jobs in Utah all the time, and when I got to LA, I thought I was going to just be
easy street. Yeah.
Right. There are 3 million of Aaron, and when you walk into an audition, and then Seth Green's in that same audition, game's over. Right? Yeah.
So did you start in Utah and then move to LA specifically for
the film business? Yeah. To be an actor, and then I quit college. My parents were pissed. Right? They were mad. My grandfather was mad.
Sure.
The idea
is this is pretty cliche. The idea of now I'm gonna quit college and go be an actor.
Right. Exactly. And I had a mentor in college, Dr. Larson, and he was mad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like,
why are you quitting?
Wait, what were you studying before?
Film.
Oh, so you were studying film even, and then you decided,
I want to be an actor.
I'm abandoning this.
I wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
And so I went out for a couple of years and did it, and it was hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did. And I'm not saying I didn't fail, and if I failed, that's fine.
Sure.
I learned something. I learned that all the great actors I was going against, they were working much harder than me. They were, right? And I didn't love it as much as I thought I did.
Gotcha.
And then while doing that, I got a job at a company called Canal Plus UFA. They were distributors at that time of films. They bought all of like Carol Coe's library and Orion's library.
Okay.
And they distributed them overseas. And the woman I worked for, Barbara Donalo, I think she's probably still there. She was a great mentor in my life. She's all, if you want to do this, Aaron, go back to school. You've got your education's almost done. Leave LA and go back to school and find what you want. Because she goes, you can work at Canal Plus, but I think you want to do more.
Right.
I'm like, okay. That made my parents happy, and then I left LA and finished my degree.
What was the span between the time that you stepped away from school and then you decided to come back?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that, and I came back and I finished my degree at the U, and I was still doing acting a little, but then Canal Plus, they came to Utah to make a movie. And I remember, because I was a script reader for them, I read scripts, and I would tell Barbara and Martin, these two people, these movies are great.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was 23 years old.
Sure.
And this is how movies get made, by the way. They have dork kids reading movies. I love this. I don't love that.
Okay.
These executives were like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I saw they really valued your point of view, right? So, and they came to Utah, and I got a small part in that, and I think that was probably my last acting job. And then a friend from college, she called me and said, "Hey, do you know what a film commission is?" And I'm like, "I have no idea."
Okay.
And she goes, "Well, they're hiring." Sorry.
I don't know what a film commission is either. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Okay.
And so I applied, and I got it. So what film commissions are? They started out a long time ago. Utah actually has probably the first film commission down in Moab. Started in the 50s, late 40s.
And it's still active.
It's still active.
Okay.
Yeah, and the idea was to get Hollywood movies into your jurisdiction, right? That's what they started out being.
Got it.
And that's what they are now. They're marketing agencies. When I first started, I started in the industry when there was still kind of a Hollywood system, I would say.
Sure.
And you would work directly with the directors and the producers and the studios, and they would send you scripts. We'd read them. We'd break them down. We'd show them creatively how to make them in Utah, and then we'd help them get their crews, get their permits.
Oh, sure.
Anything you can imagine in a movie, we would coordinate locally. Like they knew how. We don't know how to teach Hollywood people how to make movies. We just have to make it easier for them to make them in Utah.
Right.
So it almost sounds like you are the state's tour guide on where someone should film.
Sure, yeah. I would say the states also have travel departments, and many film commissions are in the travel departments. Yeah, so that's not, yes, I would say that but I would say it's more about business development than tourism.
Okay.
We can get into that. Georgia's built a whole tourism incentive around their film program, and that's where you go to make movies now.
Interesting.
So I was in the time when it was about creativity and helping directors realize their vision in Utah.
Yeah.
And then it became incentives based. Canada, they created an incentive to say, hey, filmmakers, come to Canada and to make your movies, and they were just giving them money. And so that's when the American film industry started going down in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Interesting.
And so we started states, and the United States at itself will never have an overall film incentive. Like Canada was doing federal film incentives, so it was up to the states, and states started creating film incentives. And we created our first one here in Utah. I was part of that, me and my team. And I think the first film incentive we came to was World's Fastest Indian with Anthony Hopkins, and like a High School Musical was one of the first.
Yeah.
So at that time, we now became bankers and producers.
Sure.
I'm no longer dealing with just the producer and the directors. I'm dealing with head of tax accounting at Walt Disney.
Right.
And so, and now we have a financial stake in the game. So we're really the state's producer at that time. In between that, I did go to producing school too in Maine at the Maine Media School, which was super helpful in my career. And then, so that's what a film commission does.
Okay.
Did I answer that?
How different is the producer school from what you were studying in college? Like, because I would assume that would also be covered in college.
You would think. Film schools are different. The University of Utah's film school was really about making art, right?
Sure.
And I wanted to blow stuff up. Not saying I'm not an artist or can't be an artist, but they wanted to create artists, I think.
Sure.
And so that was hard for me. And so they didn't really teach locations. They didn't really teach anything about unions. They didn't even teach anything about budgeting, about permitting, about protecting the environment.
Right.
And so while I had the creativity part and I knew how to focus a camera and light a shot, I didn't really know how to make a movie whatsoever.
Interesting.
So that's why I wanted to go to producing school. And I learned kind of how to break down a script, how to properly shoot it in an order, scheduling it. I learned budgeting. I learned a ton. I learned how to, we could go make a movie right now.
It's like the business,
so cool.
The business mechanics.
Yeah.
The behind the scenes motions. It's not just like how do you tell a story and how you.
Yeah, that has to be there, right?
Oh, of course.
So, but also, you need structure.
Yeah.
Or it never gets done.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the plight of every creative is the budget, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's always
for sure.
that's what I've been told. But okay, interesting. So you go to film school.
Film school.
You go to the producer school. Is that what you did that like immediately after?
Nope, I did it. Let's see. I think I did that one in 2001.
Okay.
It was like it was an executive kind of a program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, you just hopped right back into.
I was in film commission till 2007.
Okay.
And then
Here in Utah.
Okay. And then I got recruited by the state of North Carolina to come be their film commissioner.
Right.
And in Utah, we do smaller films here. Just the type of the right to work state.
Yeah.
Our incentive. We're not really union friendly, I would say here.
Yeah,
and then
I wouldn't say that either. Yeah.
And I wanted to I wanted to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
And in North Carolina, they had a rich history, like Utah, of making films, and they had the capacity to make bigger films. And when we interviewed, they were committed to creating allow us to create a competitive incentive. So I went there, and I do not do any of this alone. I have many helpers, many teammates,
sure.
right? Sure. And many, I guess, stakeholders. And we created a really strong incentive in North Carolina, and North Carolina was back. We in the first 3 years we were there, we built North Carolina back up. We built the largest soundstage next to Warner Brothers #1 stage. It had a tank. We shot Iron Man 3 there. We shot tons of stuff. Hunger Games.
Yeah.
We shot. Just tons. We were doing, probably close to $500 million to $1 billion in production business a year by the time I left.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
but what that caused, I hate to say this, but I'm part of ruining the film industry.
Oh no.
Georgia said, "Okay, North Carolina, we see you," and Louisiana already had their solid film commission. Their film incentive, and they were doing really good. So that's where the industry was headed. Kind of Louisiana. It was North Carolina, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And Georgia's like, okay. And they started an incentive, 30% incentive of every dollar spent in Georgia. And they really believed in it. And they stuck to it. And I think I read a story last week that they're now giving $1 billion in incentives out.
To the film industry.
Crazy.
To just come make films there.
But what it did in Georgia, and I'll give Georgia props, what other states were doing is they were just luring film people in to make movies, and they were taking that money and leaving. And in North Carolina, we said we've got to stop that, and we built our incentive that the money needs to pretty much stay.
Oh.
And it still wasn't. We weren't totally successful.
Sure.
But what Georgia did, they committed. And they were consistent. The rules never changed. And so the studios had certainty what they were going to get there.
Sure.
And now studios are there building, like Netflix has a studio there now, or Screen Gems does. I think Netflix built in New Mexico. But now all these ancillary businesses have built up. Now the music industry has been always big in Atlanta, but now it's huge. Everything, that's where the entertainment industry is right now, is in Georgia. If you want to be, I don't know. It's amazing. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's sad to see Los Angeles not. It's sad to see the industry. It's in trouble right now. But it's cool that Georgia's being consistent and all that stuff.
So maybe a dumb question: does every state have a film commission, or are there some states that don't, and that's not a priority for them to try to bring that in?
I think every state has a form of one. And that could be just a tourism person.
Sure.
But the states I worked in, we were filmmakers. We understood the business. And
So I want to take a step back on that one too, because as a person on the outside looking in, if someone told me they were a filmmaker, I imagine that they're like the director, or they're like, when I think producer, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm a person who works specifically on this one film, and that my job is finding the locations and getting the permits and getting things configured and setting the schedule and making sure people show up on time or whatever it is. And, just listening to kind of how you're describing your involvement as a commissioner, I'm trying to bridge the gap between my understanding of the filmmaker person who's behind the camera and telling people what to do, and your role and how you participated. Can it help me kind of get some clarity on that?
That people just think the guy behind the camera is just a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But he's a filmmaker, but he's a director. I'm a filmmaker and a producer. I've directed too. I've done all that. I've directed commercials and some short films.
Mm-hmm.
And I've produced some smaller films, but they're all filmmaking, even down to the PA.
Yeah.
If someone just told me they were just a PA, I get it. No, own it.
Yeah.
You're a filmmaker.
Yeah, okay.
You helped make this film. Like Michael Bay could have not made. He can't even. Michael Bay says it's a Michael Bay film. Yes, he's the director of short film,
Sure.
but he needed hundreds of filmmakers to.
Okay.
So it's like the filmmaker is, I don't know, just because we're familiar, we're all familiar with like the corporate world, right? Like
Sure, yeah.
filmmaker is like the department, and there's like
I would say
different channels.
I would say filmmakers, the overall. How do I say this? Like you're a businessman. Like
Oh, okay.
It's like
yeah,
a category. You're like the category of
and
what
then
it is.
In filmmaking, what do you do?
Sure.
So I do locations. I do catering.
Mhm.
I do.
Gotcha.
I'm a AC, right?
In retrospect,
Yeah.
looking at your life and your career, where you are now, how you got to where you are now, the things that you have done, if somebody came up to you and said, I want to be a filmmaker, and you go, great. What would you say to them as far as like your advice for this is a path you should take, or like what would you ask them to try to help kind of uncover what you would suggest as being their path to take?
I think before you answer that, I think just to take that a step further, I think that's good.
Yep.
Want to hear your response, but also on top of that, of like the realities.
Oh, sure.
People
Yes.
need to really ask themselves, right? And
sure.
like, yeah,
We love chasing dreams. I
Yeah.
love chasing dreams. I
100%.
love the idea of chasing dreams. And I think, I agree with Colton on this one. Like being able to take that step back and being like, okay, if this is what I want to do and I want to be a filmmaker and this is something that I want to do with my life, what's the reality of what I should be doing? And like, what are the questions you would ask to like kind of vet out your recommendations, or how would you approach that if someone said, I want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah. And like someone coming to ask Warren Buffett, I want to be a businessman, right?
Yeah.
Like there's many different aspects. Like what about filmmaking do you like? And that their answer would direct them into a career path.
Okay.
And let's say that career path, like I really like visuals. I really like lighting, right? I liked a certain movie, like the movie Drive, like aesthetically.
Oh yeah.
That movie Drive. I would say you should be either a cinematographer, a gaffer, or a production designer.
What's a gaffer?
A gaffer is a person who works directly with the cinematographer and sets all the lights. They're lighting magicians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like what we were doing.
So you were a gaffer for us earlier.
Yeah,
okay.
He was playing the role of the gaffer.
Yeah.
The gaffer.
Yes.
And those guys, it's such a weird name. I know. I don't know. There's probably
a whole history.
Yeah.
right? But
Google
they're
it.
amazing, right? They can just make magic.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
I would tell them to get into cinematography
Mhm.
and start learning the camera and how lighting affects that camera. And then I'd tell them to go buy a cheap camera and shoot something every single day. And then I would guide them if they wanted to go to college or don't want to go to college, right?
Sure.
I'm not going to say you have to go to college.
Oh, sure.
Because you don't. And then somehow, I know now with the internet and like social, I would hook up with local screenwriters, local directors. I would find your group and just start doing it.
How would someone find that? Like Facebook or like
Sure.
or just
And
Googling stuff or
I was alive before the internet, so I don't know. But I know you can do it on the
Aaron's
internet.
like, I would knock doors.
Yeah, I would go and knock doors.
Knock on doors.
Have a
Like,
message.
with my resume. No,
Right.
just-
But I'm sure there's got to be like groups, like
sure.
even at the local universities, right?
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this today. I'm like, how would I? First of all, I would write a script that I could afford, right? Don't like I wanted to blow stuff up as a kid. I could never
Sure.
afford to really safely do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Yeah, don't write a script about
right.
someone in space,
Right.
of traveling to Mars
Right.
and something, fighting aliens.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's a little probably
maybe
out
they
of
can do
budget.
that now on their computers, which I wouldn't doubt.
Sure, yeah.
But then I would start asking for, because college kids, then I would crew it up and I would go to the universities, BYU, Utah, UVU. They all have, actually, I'm so impressed with the kids from BYU.
Yeah.
And I didn't go there, and I'm glad they lost yesterday. But I've been working with a lot of kids who've come out of BYU.
The film school in BYU.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
And these kids are magical. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been, they're not kids, they're adults. I'm sorry.
Well, they're kids.
They're-
to us.
they're kids
Yeah.
to us, right.
We're old people.
And how to get a group and start building a portfolio. I would go to bands around around your community and say, hey, can I shoot a music video for you?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I would.
Oh.
Anyway, I would start building a portfolio. I would start, and it depends where you want to go. If you want to, I'm going to go back because the other day, one of my coworkers, he's a lead creative with me at work, and he's much younger than me. And we were talking movies, and he's like, I really don't like movies. And it blew my mind.
That he's a creator.
And with video, right?
Yeah.
And I thought all of us, this is how ignorant I was, right? And older than he is. I'm like, and then we were in Houston shooting something last week, and I said, we had a conversation yesterday, and he said something interesting. You said you don't like movies. I'm like, how did you get into this?
Yeah.
How, like,
as a person that doesn't like
and it was
movies.
a sincere question. And he's all, oh, YouTube. And I'm like, oh, maybe he's the first of the YouTube generation and it's legit, right?
Interesting.
And he goes, yeah, I followed this guy named DevinSuperTramp.
Yeah.
I guess he was a big YouTube guy, right? And so he's like the Steven Spielberg to these dudes, right? To these guys. And that's how they're learning the craft and the profession.
Interesting.
So there's so many ways to distribute your work now. Like, me, I'm traditionally just movie theaters, right? This is how you do it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe the streamers.
Sure.
But I think I learned quickly that, I need to adapt. I need to learn from these guys, and I've loved it.
So if I was to say,
I think Devin's local.
Oh, is he?
I think he went to BYU.
Oh, did he?
oh, well, maybe we should
Or something.
maybe we should hunt him down.
Yeah.
So if you had to like categorize the filmmakers into different groups and try to like say this is probably similar paths, right? Because I think the same thing like businessmen. Like if I was to be like, okay, you're a businessman. If you were like an accountant, there's a path I could probably send you down. If you wanted to be like a project manager, then there's a path I could send you down. Like how would you kind of slice and dice these different filmmaker groups into these kind of like categories, if you could?
Yeah.
And like,
so
if you think that their paths would be like, or your advice would be similar for each one.
Sure. No, for like let's say project manager.
Yeah.
If you want to be a project manager in film terms, that's a line producer, a unit production manager, and a first AD.
Okay.
You're dealing with schedules. You're dealing with you're solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting all those blockers out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of like the line producer. And a producer in the film industry handles, like, they're the partners in team with the director, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then under the producer, you would have like the UPM, the production manager, the line producer, and the first AD.
Okay.
So that's how I would say, and then I would tell those dudes to go find all the screenwriters they know, the writers,
Mm-hmm.
and I would build a team. And then if that writer wanted to be director, because now people are writer directors.
Yeah.
Sure.
When I was in the industry, it was like, if a writer wanted to direct a movie, the kind of the studio rule was you had to have 3 scripts bought and produced, right?
Oh, before they even let you sit in the director chair.
Right. That was
like
kind of the
qualifications.
unwritten rule, right?
Oh, sure.
And then now I think, and then independent film in the early 2000s, it changed all that. Like,
Oh, interesting.
oh no, writers and directors can be the same person. So, as a producer, I would go find a writer and a director, or writer director that I believed in, and I would start marketing that person. I would start writing. We're gonna start going to send these scripts to. I would do festivals, screenwriting festivals. I would go to workshops. And like the Sundance workshop we have here, it's hard to get into. It's just kind of a pecking order. They want to kind of, the kids from USC and the AFI get in first, right?
Oh, sure.
So it's really hard. But there's other places. Sundance is not the only place, right?
Sure.
There's many of ways. And networking. And you'll see how quick things start moving.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get rich. You're not going to, but you're going to start creating.
Sure.
You're going to start. And if you wanted to be a person who just works on set, like I've worked with some guys because I just want to be on set all day.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Like,
Right.
okay, you're going to call the film commission.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to say, I want it. And this is, anybody can do it, but I'd say start this at a younger age so you have time to move up.
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to be a PA. And they're like, okay. And I would I'd bug them every week. I'd say, "Is there any new films in town? I want to be a PA," and they'll start knowing you, and then they'll want you off their back.
Please leave me alone.
They'll get you, and they will get you a PA job, right? And on their person, and that's for a person who doesn't know what they want to do. All they don't want to know is they want to be on a movie.
Sure, yeah.
Is it almost like an internship?
It's
kind of.
most likely on independent films. It's gonna be an internship. Bigger films, they'll pay you, but it's minimum wage type. It's entry level stuff, but it's exciting and it's fun.
Sure. And
if you're willing to learn and not be arrogant and be a smart aleck and be serious, because it's a lot of money. The movies cost a lot of money, and time is essential. Yeah. And then they'll start seeing what each department on a film does, and then they'll start navigating. Oh, move up to an assistant. I like the art department. I can be an art. I can be an art PA. I like the camera. I can be a camera PA. And all of a sudden, I'm a second assistant camera person. Now they let you work the slate. Yeah. They let you, right? So that's how I would tell someone if they didn't. All they know is they love movies. They want to work on a movie set. Yeah. Start as a PA and go to Atlanta. You'll work tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Atlanta.
Is there, you've talked about a few different schools. Mm-hmm. Is there a school specifically that, because, you mentioned BYU earlier, right? Yep. And you went to University of Utah.
Yep.
Is there a school that's a little bit more known than others for their filmmaking or producing?
Yeah, I would say there's a handful of them. USC, School of Film. Mm-hmm. They also have a School of Producing.
Sure.
So they have to. So USC, that's if you can get into USC.
Sure. Yes, that's the hard one, right?
Yeah. So, the American Film Institute, AFI. You go there to make you become a filmmaker, right? Like Brown has a really good. There's more theoretical. You're going to be the smartest film person. Mm-hmm. Their production, I don't think they've got a good production department, but they're about theory and why we make films, which is important to know if you want to make important films.
But if someone just wants to get their hands dirty,
dirty,
like Brown, maybe.
Yeah, you don't go to Brown.
Okay.
Chapman, and schools like North Carolina School of the Arts has got a really good film program there. Let's see, UCLA has, but I think there's more theoretical. NYU, you can get into that. Yeah. But if you can't and you need to pay, you might have to pay for it. Savannah has a film Full Sail, I think it's called. Okay. They're ranked. You're going to pay a lot for it, I think, but you're going to learn a lot. They're not going to, like these one-day film schools you'll see pop up around. I don't know about them. I don't want to disparage them, but I don't think you can learn filmmaking in one week or whatever. Sure. One day.
Yeah, at least 2 weeks.
Right. I said the best way to learn it is doing it. Yeah. And if you're more academic and you want a more structured life, go to school. Yeah. If you can afford to go to school, go to school. Yeah. If you can't, it's okay. Just get in it and just start doing it.
Roll your sleeves up. Get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
That's interesting that the path the path you're recommending, like talking to the film, I didn't even know that was a resource. Being able to go turn to them and be able to say, hey, you guys know people. They're like the people who know. If any film is being made in the state, they should be aware of it.
And also, your film commissioner is your path. They're funded by the state you live in. They're your path to the film industry. They know, like once I became a film commissioner, I could no longer pitch my films. I could no longer say, hey, put me in this film. It was a conflict of interest. I was meeting with studio heads every day. I was sitting in scout vans with Ang Lee and John Woo every day. Oh, right? Wow, cool. And so I just had connections that I no longer could use myself. But, I know this kid, right? This kid has a special talent. Yeah. And hey, Joe at Netflix, this kid just is amazing. Could you just take 10 minutes and talk to him? Can I send you his reel? Right? If I believed in a kid, a person, a creative like that who I thought could, I would totally make that connection. Yeah. I love doing that. I love making connections of people.
Because you see that in movies, right? Yeah. Where if you watch a movie that talks about like someone trying to get into Hollywood, trying to be an actor, right? There's usually someone who is like in favor of looking out for the underdog and just like giving them a chance. And so they have the connections already. They have the experience. They've networked with people, and they go talk to someone in the filmmaking industry and say, hey, I know this guy, super talented. He writes awesome scripts, or he's a really good actor, or he can direct a movie like no one's business. And you see that in movies, right? And so I think there's an element for myself where it's like, is this true? Like, does this
I mean, it is
happen?
in a movie. It has to be true.
Yeah.
So
Put it in a movie.
I think fame is weird, right? We're all like enamored by Hollywood. They did such a great job of enamoring us, of putting figures on 40-foot screens for somebody that made them gods. But you know what? They're just regular people. It's just a regular business. They want to monetize everything. So I would say approach it like you approach your own. Like, I want to go work for Coca-Cola, right? I'd send them, what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to meet the CEO, whatever, right? I would treat the film industry with the same respect and the same level of challenge. It's hard to be a director. It's hard to be like, those are like the quarterbacks, right?
Sure.
Only a certain percent of us are that good. But us normies, well, I'm a normie. There's it's a vast network industry that needs a lot of people, and you just got to find what you want to do.
But ultimately, when you boil everything down and get down to the soup and nuts, it's a business.
Just a business.
It's just a business, like everything
First
else.
and foremost, they care about the bottom line.
Peeling it back, not looking. I don't want to know necessarily, but maybe I do.
Of course we do.
I don't want to say like the nitty gritty, but like to some degree, like what is the underbelly that people on the outside don't know about or don't get, and I think, when we say film is a business like anything else, right? There is like this outward looking in, and I think film has this problem more than most businesses, right? Like nobody like looks into what would it be, like Coca-Cola necessarily, or nobody looks into the office building of Starbucks and goes, oh man, I bet like working there is like nothing else. It's got to be so cool working at a desk at Starbucks. But people do that with the film. Like, people see the film industry and they have this like rose-colored glasses or whatever it is looking on the outside in, and they think that there's certain things that go certain ways, or that there's some sort of beauty that exists that may not exist. So as a person who's been intimately involved, peeling that layer back, like what is kind of like the underbelly of the industry that people just should know before they kind of really get into it?
So I'll say about 0.3% of the industry is glamorous, right? It's just the movie magic. It's the Ben Afflecks, the Tom Cruises, right? And not disparaging those. Without the Ben Afflecks, the Tom Cruises, and like the Nicole Kidmans, there is no industry.
Yeah,
and we need them, and they deserve what they make. But it's a real job. If you're working on set, and even if you're in the corporate side, on set you're working sometimes maybe 14 hours. If you're working over 14 hours, you're on a dangerous set, and it's I would say something. Right? That's not safe. But at least 10 to 12 hours a day on set. You're probably away from your family if you have a family. So I would say, if you value your time with your family, maybe it's too late to go. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
but
it is a reality.
But it is a reality. It's a time suck. It's and on films, you're gonna be dedicating your life to that. You can make great money. You can make good money. There's all, like any corporation setup, there's the levels of how much you'll make. There will be times, if you're not in the corporate side, if you're just on the production side, you're not going to be working, right? And so you just have to watch how you budget your life. Right?
Sure.
But filmmakers have some of the great, like, I'm going to work for 6 months, and I'm going to go take 6 months off. I'm going to go 6 months to travel. Each section has its own, I wouldn't say underbelly, when I think of underbelly, I think of like Harvey Weinstein.
Oh yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't want that underbelly. We don't want that. We don't want to go that far under the belly. We just want to get get to the lint in the belly.
Hard work, tiring. It can not be consistent at times.
Sure.
A lot of lawyers sometimes you got to deal with for some reason. It just like on this TV show Revolution we were working on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a steam engine that needed to come to wherever we're shooting.
Sure.
Well, it was going to be too expensive to. Somehow we couldn't put it on a truck.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So they had to put it on a semi or whatever and drive it. Well, now there's rules. Every bridge you drove over now, because it was over a certain weight, we had to do a structural engineering
check
on every bridge it went over. There was something like 50 bridges
on the path from point A to point B and back.
Wow. And back. We had to do it twice.
Yeah.
So, but it was important. So, you know how annoying that is, trying to get that red tape. So, yeah, try closing down a freeway to flip a car. Or even Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 2 when we worked on that, trying to get 3 helicopters in the air when there's sheep trying to mate and falcons trying to sleep. Right? The film industry does a great job at protecting the environment, and those issues are important to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to the BLM who we were working with.
Right,
sure.
right.
So we scheduled these camera ships, these 3 helicopters.
Yeah.
To be in the air 20 minutes at a time during 4 times during an 8-hour period.
Okay.
And we wouldn't disrupt those 2 things. So that's the kind of stuff you have to deal with.
Not the kind my kind of problems are what do I put on this PowerPoint slide?
Yeah. This Excel spreadsheet broke and my formula's not working.
Yeah. And there used to be a TV show called Touched by an Angel. I don't know if you know, but
I'm familiar of its existence.
Yeah, and it was shot here in Utah.
Yeah.
And they brought in about 150 Somalian extras, and they were doing a scene out on Antelope Island. And then at that time, during that day, Utah had its first tornado.
Oh,
you remember the tornado
in
in Utah?
Yes, that was that was a long time ago.
Yeah. And we had to figure out how to get those 100 because the tornado was coming straight for them.
Yeah.
We had to figure out how to get those people off there and into. We had 20, 30 minutes to do it into safety. So
wow.
So things can happen in an instant. And filmmaking's dangerous. People die, unfortunately. They shouldn't.
Sure.
Yes.
And so safety is I think a big issue. It's the number one issue.
Okay.
You've already brought up a ton of examples on things that you've worked on, right? In different movies and stuff. What has been your favorite? What has been your all-time, I will always remember that moment, whether it was interacting with someone on the set, an actor or someone, whatever it is. What was your favorite?
There's probably a ton, and I value relationships. I value.
Yeah.
I stopped chasing money a long time ago, and I really want to do this, and I want to make connection. And when I got,
because he's so loaded.
Oh, I thought it was because he decided he wasn't going to make any.
Just because
it was both of them possible.
I like being poor.
Yeah, I love being. I realized
money.
I'm not going to get any more.
Money's not real.
it's all fake.
It's all fake.
Yeah. The US dollar.
So when I meet a person, I make that person a mentor. And they may not know.
You make them a mentor.
I make them a mentor, even a mini mentor, meaning I'm going to suck all the knowledge I can from this person while I'm in with them. So
that's kind of what we're doing here.
Involuntary mentorship.
Involuntary mentorship. Yeah.
So we're making Aaron a mentor.
Yeah.
Right now.
Dope.
But we also believe in consent.
And yes.
Consensual mentorship.
Consensual mentorship.
But I would say Salma Hayek. When I first started at the film commission, and I thought I knew Utah pretty well.
Sure,
here, and there's this little town called Eureka, and we went and shot it. And that time we were shooting on film location photos. We'd take a panoramic, and we'd actually have to stitch with tape these pictures together to present as locations. And this little town Eureka, and I said, I'm going to make a movie here before I'm done.
Yeah.
And then Showtime sent us a script.
Mm-hmm.
It was called The Maldonado Miracle, and and Salma Hayek was going to direct it, and it was going to be her directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the script, and I'm like, Eureka! We're going to make this in Eureka. And I sent them, and the studio loved it. Salma Hayek loved it. The problem is Eureka is really far from Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And it would take a lot.
It's expensive to bring everything out, right?
Yeah, and and it adds more hours to the day for the crew, right?
Oh, sure.
To
Sure,
get
sure,
there.
sure.
And the studio's like, what are the specific? And I told them, and they're like, we're not going to spend that time or money. We can't. But what you did, Salma Hayek loved it, and now she wants to see it. Do not take her there when she comes to town.
Wait, who told you not to take? The producers?
The studio executives.
The studio executive, the bankrollers. They're the ones who are paying for it.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And thing, I don't work for them.
Of course not.
Sure.
No.
So I don't. I value our relationship, and I said, okay. So Salma Hayek gets off the plane, and she says, "Take me to Eureka."
Oh no.
And I'm like, I can't. The studio said no. She said, "I'm Salma Hayek." She pulled that. Take me to Eureka. and I only had her that day for like maybe 7 hours. I didn't have her that long.
Oh, that's like half the time.
Yeah.
Just getting to Eureka back, right?
So I'm like, okay, but I'm supposed to show you 3 other places. We won't have time.
Because they wanted 3 other places outside of Eureka.
Yeah, I send them when we're pitching locations.
Right.
Creatively, we'll give them options. Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's many places, but that would work. Just didn't have the soul or the Eureka had for this.
Sure. And
so she went out there and she loved it. And she goes, I need to make this here. And I just said, it's not going to happen. and she goes, Aaron, you have to help me make this movie here. You have to tell them. I'm like, what happened to I'm the Salma Hayek?
Yeah.
I'm Aaron. I'm Aaron. I'm not
Aaron.
Salma Hayek.
You tell them.
And she was just like, oh, I'm a first time director. They're not trusting me. Like they'll. And I said, okay, but one, I'm going to get yelled at already,
Sure,
for not taking you to the other places, and but I will think of something, whatever. And so she went back. The studios were pissed. Like, again, I don't care. They're yelling at me. I don't work for them. So I did what I did, and they got mad. We're going to send her out again. Do not take her there again. Or she wanted to go again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll see the other places first.
Sure.
And then in the meantime, between those 2 scouts, I worked up a production plan. And I said, most of the production happens in Salt Lake, but Provo's close enough. And Provo's closer to Eureka. You can get than Salt Lake. So I built up a production plan, and I pitched it, and I showed Salma. I was like, this is how you could do it. This is how you can meet your days. You can meet your budget. And we then pitched it to Showtime, and they bought into it. They weren't happy, but they weren't. The location manager was pissed at me.
Sure.
Everybody was mad at Aaron for doing this. And so, and Salma Hayek, I've always been a huge fan of Salma Hayek.
Oh, of course,
no,
yes.
And
You don't say no to Salma.
Yeah,
Hayek.
no. Don't you dare.
Everyone loves her.
And we did it, and she was able to make her first film there where she wanted to make it, where she felt it was. And I was just happy to be a part of that, happy to help her. And, and it was really cool. And then the film got into Sundance, and it was the first Utah-made film that ever got into the Sundance Film Festival. And me and my wife went to the premiere, and she's a huge star, and her husband at the time, or boyfriend, Edward Norton, was a huge star. And,
Oh, sure.
and the paparazzi was surrounding them. Right inside the Eccles, and she saw me, and I waved, and she like moved them all out of the way, grabbed Edward Norton, and she made it a point to meet my wife, to thank me. It was just like that's why you do it. Right. It was like it was a cool moment.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Because I think for myself, if I were to just hear that story alone, I think that would be cool to get into video production just to meet celebrities, right? Just because we put, I think naturally, anyone outside of Hollywood, they put celebrities up on a pedestal, right?
Yeah, and I would urge anybody for the idea of getting into the movie industry to get that out of your mind quickly, because John Stockton said it best. Sorry for all of the Utah references.
Yeah, that's right.
When he was in the Olympics, and I think it was '92 when the Dream Team was.
Oh yes, the Dream Team. We loved the Dream Team.
Right. He he said something poignant. He said something like, when our first appointment came and asked me for my autograph, I knew we were going to win. Like, this was going to be right. So that's what I would urge everybody. Don't be an autograph seeker. Put yourself on the same level as them, because you are, right? Sure, they get paid more. Sure, they're on, because they're beautiful and they're talented.
Yeah.
That's their, like,
Sure.
But now you're in their world. Act like you belong there.
No, I love the story.
Yeah.
My second thought is always to go to like what's the worst situation you've ever had?
I have it. I'll tell you a couple of rules I had, and I've never really told these stories because I don't. But I'm not in that industry anymore.
Oh, sure.
Not that I don't care. I still value my relationship. But early on, I made it a point. I've been treated poorly by a lot of producers, and as I became kind of a senior in that role, kind of, one of the top, I would say, film commissioners in the world, I valued my own value. So I had rules. Sure. There are certain filmmakers I would not, like, we weren't going to work on a Harvey Weinstein movie.
Sure.
And if my bosses, the governors I worked for, at that time, I would have been fired. But I wasn't.
Do you have to set those boundaries beforehand, like as you're getting in that career, because you can just get pulled anyway?
Yep. And I've got pulled in many different directions as a young person in the career, and I didn't know I could say no, right?
Sure.
But as I got older and more mature, I'm like, oh yeah, you're not a good person. You're gonna, like, you treated my staff poorly.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that.
Sure.
And then there was this movie being shot in Georgia where it was about Greg Allman and the Allman Brothers, and a camera person named Sarah Jones got killed on it. Got run over by a train because the stupid director and the stupid producer weren't being safe.
Yeah.
And I think the director's in prison now, as he should be. Anyway, right after that happened, they still wanted to film the movie, and they tried to come to North Carolina, and I just you got somebody killed.
Sure.
You got somebody killed.
You don't get to do that.
Didn't even happen.
Yeah.
So
you don't get to do that here.
You don't get to do that. Yeah.
No. Yeah, and maybe not necessarily the bad. It is interesting for you to say, like, you have rules.
Can I tell you one more thing before that?
Yes, absolutely.
And I want to say something good. Because there's, like, either people like Tom Cruise or they really hate Tom Cruise.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that. Everyone I've talked to,
They
a
love
few
him?
people I talked to,
All right.
everyone that I've seen says that they love.
Oh, good.
Working with this
A
guy.
lot of people, I was like, Tom Cruise, blah, blah. I don't know Tom Cruise personally, first of all.
Sure.
I worked on him in Mission Impossible 2 and something else I don't.
Yeah.
He is a consummate professional. He will remember your name and remember. So when you hear these big stars, Tom Cruise, he doesn't need to know that I'm working on his film in any capacity, right?
Sure.
But he made a point to thank me. Like, I got a call he landed his jet in Moab, and it was too big, and I got yelled at by the airport.
Okay.
And he apologized. I heard what you did. We'll fix it. We'll make sure. We'll talk with the FAA. I'm sorry. Like,
that's cool.
He didn't have to do
No,
that.
he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, he could have had his people say, fix this, and because now you've inconvenienced me.
Yeah, they could have said,
realized,
I'm Tom Cruise.
Yeah, he realized he inconvenienced a lot of people, and maybe some FAA laws were maybe.
Well, we're not getting into the details of that. No, but I have heard that Tom Cruise is a professional, right?
Yep,
like
100%.
He is there to work.
Yep.
He is there to get things done, and he is there to do his job,
Yep.
right?
Correct.
And to know, and he knows, like, and I've been on a set, and Colton's been on a set, that, like, everyone has a job.
Yep.
You do your job, and everyone else is happy. And that if you don't do your job, then, like you're saying, you can have an impact on everybody else's job.
100%.
So I have heard that about Tom Cruise. I guess one of the things I think we talked about too is, okay, you as a person who's in the industry, you had mentioned earlier, if there's a person that you wanted to, like, recommend, or that you say, hey, you want to help build these relationships, create introductions,
right.
or, like, what is your, like, metric, or how do you, like, evaluate whether or not a person is potentially good or not? And maybe this is, like, not quite an interview question, but it's like, when you're looking at somebody and somebody's coming to you to say, I am interested, or I would like to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Like, how do you
How do you
measure?
vet them?
Yeah,
Sure.
what's your
Right?
measuring stick or whatever it is that you use?
One, I would say that's a good question, and maybe maybe I just helped everybody. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, you're like, oh, sure, yeah, get off my back, like you
but
said.
I
earlier.
would say
a really nice guy.
I would judge where they were at on their path to that, and I would look at their work up to that point. Like if they have produced some stuff, if they have had like some stuff, and then I think I would go by that. I think my inner gut, like if I like, there's these two kids here in Utah, the Lewis brothers, Rhett and Burke Lewis, and now their little brother Taylor. These were high school kids, right? And they started bugging me at the film commission.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the kids who were bugging me at first. And I thought I was a big hot shot. And they were bugging me so much that I just started, I'm like, fine, make me a commercial. Make me 3 commercials that I can take to Sundance and that I can promote Utah with.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they did it. And now these guys have a really good production company in Utah, and they go all over the world now.
Yeah.
And they want to make movies. And I got into business with them for a little bit, and we got a script, and we weren't successful in getting it produced. It was just too much money, and the studios weren't interested in it. But like guys like that, now they're adults and have families and kids, and they're still doing it. They're really successful. They make great money. They're their own bosses.
Yeah.
And they can go hang out in Mexico for as long as they want, if they wanted to. So.
Yeah. What would you say is like the hardest part of the film industry?
The egos, the self-importance, the money's a problem, meaning they solve problems with money sometimes, and that's not a good thing to do. It's just and all
Just
that,
buy
and
their way out.
and all that comes from, right? We're all susceptible for being egotistical and self-important, but there's so much money that's involved in making major motion pictures that you have, like, let's say probably the average right now is around $50 to $80 million, and you have 90 days to make this movie, and every day is a $2 million day or something.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So literally time is money.
Yeah.
Time is money. Getting a movie made is really hard. It's trying to get a bunch of individuals to buy into your creative idea, right? And on the independent side, on the studio side, they have all the money in the world.
Sure.
But on the independent side, it's you only have a finite amount of money and a finite amount of time and a finite amount of a person's attention to help you, right? Why should they help you? Like, how are you going to compensate this person to believe in your vision for 90 days?
Yeah.
Sure.
And how are you going to treat them? Sometimes you're on set and you get an AD's person, assistant director's job is to keep it on time and on budget, keep it going with UPM. And sometimes they don't do it in a nice way, right?
Sure.
Sometimes they'll just be jerks about it and they'll use harsh language. And so you'll have to have tough skin. Don't take it personal, right? And don't let people walk on you. I think, we still, and you see somebody like Spike Lee. I was at the South by Southwest Film Festival, and Spike Lee had a film there, and he walked right by me, and my business partners at the time said, "You got to go say something to him." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not going to bother him." And he goes, "You got to do it." And I should say, "Hey, Spike, huge fan. I want you to tell your stories in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?"
Yeah.
Sure.
Instead, I went, "Hey, Spike, I'm a huge fan." Right? Yeah, I was just an idiot. My one chance, and I blew it.
Yeah.
Eminem would have been so upset with me.
Yeah. He's gonna listen to this, and he's gonna be
totally
and he's now he's gonna be
He doesn't
really
leave
upset
the
with
house.
it.
Yeah, totally. Listen to
Hey,
this.
if Spike Lee reaches out to us,
We'll let
we'll
him
make
know.
sure
Thank
to
you.
contact you.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's so cool. I've always been a Spike Lee fan. I don't know why. A white kid from Utah, but for some reason his stories.
Sure.
And 2 stories about Spike. I worked at a movie theater too. I only wanted to do work that was in
like
movies.
scooping up popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. Yep, and I
Nice.
managed them. I tour tickets at the time.
If it wasn't film adjacent, you didn't
I
touch
didn't
it.
want to. Yeah, I've worked at Blockbuster movie theaters. Anyway, the movie Malcolm X, which took 25 years to make,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Sure.
And it was a long movie, and it was on film at that time. And I was moving it to a different screen, and I dropped it. And film has a mind of its own. So Spike Lee, if your numbers were low in Salt Lake
no.
on that day, that was my fault. It was opening day.
And
Oh,
he's
no.
sorry.
Sorry,
And
Spike.
I'm sorry. But then he came to my college at the U and spoke. And I had a friend I went to high school with who went to the U also. He was Muslim, and he was president of the Muslim group on campus.
Sure.
And they brought Spike Lee, and I had a poster of Malcolm X, and he got it signed for me, and it hangs up in my house. So.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So.
What one thing, because you mentioned this earlier, like DevinSuperTramp.
Yep.
Right. I remember when I was in college, it was like he was always doing this cool stuff of like launching off ramps, and and he has like this tractor where he hooks up this tube and he's just spinning
That is
around
crazy.
and just like random stuff. And I think it was like the same period of when like Dude Perfect was starting to pick up steam. Also, Dude Perfect, they do like trick shots.
Oh, okay.
So if someone listening to this or watching this were to say, "Hey, I want to get into film, but I don't want to go down the film commission route. I don't want to do it like
I don't want to be a movie maker.
Yeah, well,
I want to make content, but not
yes.
for the theater screens.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Are there any like words of wisdom for that person where they think that they can just sign up for like a course online from some YouTuber to say, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to make a commercial, and it's going to be a 3-day course, and I'm going to teach you, I have a lighting course, and I have how to operate a camera course." Like what are your thoughts? Because I feel like a lot of those are coming up more and more on YouTube.
So people are charging.
Yeah. So,
but I bet there's still many free ones, right?
no, yeah. There's
If you don't have money to spend on that, it's so accessible.
Sure.
And people like Devin Super, I don't know what he does, but he's a huge influence on today's, I guess they're called content creators now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
You
is-
this
Yeah.
the use.
no idea.
He grabbed a camera and he just started doing it, right?
Yeah.
That dude probably has just a massive vault of ideas in his head.
Yeah.
He's just an idea maker. He's this generation's filmmaker, right?
Mhm.
He's just people today born, the millennials and Gen Zs, or that's what they're called.
They're alphas now, right?
They're
Alphas.
alphas.
Alphas. I think.
They consume entertainment in a different way, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It's like I wish the movies were still the prime thing, but they're not. Things have evolved, and
Right.
which is good, and people are now making a living off creating content. Like I think TikTok has killed
TikTok
the movie industry, and it's not TikTok's fault. It's the movie industry. They have not stayed relevant. They have not. Something else came and disrupted the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And kids are now learning, hey, we can tell stories in 30 seconds now.
Right.
We don't have to.
Wasn't there was like an app? Was it called like QB or something? Did you ever hear about this one?
So I think
like some of the
Google,
production companies kind of bankrolled this one.
So yeah, she ran for governor of the Google CEO or something, started QB, and it was going to be a short form.
yes.
It was a great idea, and it failed.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it failed pretty
quickly.
quickly.
Yeah.
Which I guess, if you're gonna fail,
Yeah.
fail fast.
It
But
fell fa- yeah,
Sure.
and what it was, I guess they were trying to force their model into something new,
Yes.
and the kids were like, the consumers of how media is going to be consumed now, like, nope, we want it more organic.
yeah, they're like, this
We
is
don't
not-
want your
Interesting.
stupid Hollywood ideas.
Yeah.
we don't want your stupid Hollywood ideas in our TikToks,
Yep.
basically. That's what it felt like.
Yep.
Going back in your life and the careers path that you've taken so far, if there was something you could have adjusted that you feel like would have made a big difference for you,
Yeah.
is there something you would have done differently or a decision you would have made earlier?
Yeah, I would have probably I would have prepared myself for Los Angeles.
What do you mean by that?
I would have I didn't know anything about the industry when I moved. I knew what it was in Utah, right?
Mhm.
I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to keep a conversation going.
Sure.
Like talk intelligently to. I wish I would have educated myself better instead of with my arrogance gone out there thinking I was hot shit.
And now it's Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
It's in addition to LA. It's also Atlanta.
You know, decisions are still being made in Los Angeles.
Yes,
everything's
yes.
just nothing's being made there anymore.
So when you say educate myself more before going into their space,
yep.
Like what do you like on what? Like
I don't like.
Let's say I'm an actor. I'm saying, you know what? I'm doing it.
I guess, and my family was never in the entertainment industry, so they didn't know how to.
Sure.
You know, to them, it was just, you're stupid. Go to law school, right?
Become a doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess
or nurse.
I guess I would have asked more questions. Found a mentor who's done it. Right.
Oh, okay.
I wish I would have. I went out with a buddy who was enamored. He didn't have any experience in the industry whatsoever. Right.
Yeah.
I had at least done acting and directed plays and so we went out, but I didn't have I went out at the same time as Ben Affleck. Get a crew, right?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Casey Affleck, they had a crew, and then there's Mark Wahlberg had his crew, and I was out at the same time as in LA as they, and I just didn't. It was me.
Yeah,
that's right. I didn't have a support. I guess get a support crew if you're gonna go for it, and take your homies with you and help them too.
So similar passions. Find people with similar passions.
Yeah,
you guys
that's a good way to put it.
Can lift each other up essentially.
Yeah.
And try to figure out how to network with other people, bounce ideas off of each other, and because you said this before, times get hard, right?
Yeah,
when you're doing that,
lonely,
and so being lonely, being
not financially
low on money,
stable,
and so having that support system is a high recommendation,
right? And I would say also one thing I didn't do, which I would have. I wish I would have continued my acting training.
Interesting.
I had training, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had great training, I would say, but not enough and not continuing.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, and that's a great way to meet your crew too, is going to, so me, I wish I would have continued studying acting with real actors in Los Angeles. But I was too good to do that.
Do you think you would have pursued being more on the screen actor if you did those things? Would that be your passion? I want to be in front of the camera all the time and have those types of roles, or would you fluctuate? You wanted to understand more of being an actor, so you knew other roles
right
within the film industry.
So I guess my experience was that's how I thought you told stories was through an actor, right? Right. I didn't really know there was another way to do it, and that was my experience.
Gotcha.
And it a lot of anxiety. I get a lot of anxiety being on camera, being on stage, and
sure.
And they didn't fix those problems for you back then. There wasn't a way to you're being a wimp. Get over it.
Yeah.
But it's real. I suffer from anxiety is what it was, and so it was hard for me. I didn't enjoy it as much.
Okay.
And being on, I think I like the story aspect of it, and I like directing, and I think that comes from as a young actor, I was allowed to direct plays, and in film school, I was allowed to direct short films, and I really like. I understand actors, and I really like working with them. Because being an actor, you're really vulnerable, and it's hard to be really vulnerable.
Yeah, all the time.
Right.
On command, you have to become very vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like helping those actors get to those spots and creating an environment where they're able to give great performances.
At what point, if you were to give some additional advice to somebody to say, this is not for you, looking at it from that perspective, to say, how would you determine a person, or have you ever helped somebody who was in it, where you're like, okay,
get out,
this is not for you?
The only thing I can say is I recognized it in myself, right? I recognized that I didn't have the capability to be a great actor.
Yeah.
Right? I realized that in myself. I would never tell anybody, unless you're just a buffoon, you're showing up high to work or drunk to work, or you're just incapable of just living, because you you can just be a regular. You don't have to be spectacular working movies, right?
Sure.
You can be, but if they're not being serious, if they're not taking it serious, I would just say I would never give my opinion. So you should not be in this industry.
Okay.
But if someone who worked for me and I saw them and I'm like, you're not taking this serious. This is a serious business. We may make funny things. We may make, do goofy but it's serious business and people's lives and their livelihoods depend on it. So if you can't, there's the door. Yeah. Or if you're just a horrible person,
sure,
I won't work with you.
Yeah,
just
self-reflection.
Like even Colton, when we worked together, we had we had a creative director treat one of our creatives really poorly, and I had to. They no longer work with that company,
right? Yeah.
I really I can respect and understand the perspective of being like, look, I will never tell someone that this is not for you. That is their choice. That is their decision. You can, as an external person, evaluate your perspective of their dedication.
Sure.
And say, myself and a few other people here have had some comments about your dedication. And if you want to progress and you want to continue and you want to be the kind of person, because I'm understanding that networking is very important when it comes to how you get to these things. Like, if you want to be on the next set, if you want to be on the next production, like people are going to have to want to know that you deliver, and that they're going to want to, in best case, enjoy working with you. Which makes sense. I mean, like most jobs, like it is just a job. It is just an industry. It is a business in the end. And everyone, if you're going to be on a place together for 14 hours, you got to make sure that it's better that it's a good time than it's a bad time.
Right. And check yourself. Don't worry about what Joe Schmo's doing. Make sure you're being tolerable. Am I being the jerk today? I'm like, do I need to check myself? Right.
Yeah.
It's great
advice.
You
don't be the drama.
Right.
Don't be the drama.
Is there any last pieces of advice or questions that we haven't asked or dug into that you would recommend to someone trying to figure out or navigate into the filmmaking industry?
So I would say, I in the middle of my career, I was offered to go to Abu Dhabi and be their film commissioner. I was offered to go to Hawaii and be their film commissioner, and I was offered to come back to Utah again to be there. But I finally got to a point like I want to go back to what I got into for to start creating. So I moved my career. I stopped my career. I made probably I cut my income by a lot by doing that.
Sure.
I just dropped out. I was done. And I went into advertising, right? And I learned really quickly. One, I got to use the same tools. I got to tell stories still, but on a smaller basis. I was home more. There was different. I learned what an e-commerce was. So I not only brought my skills, I learned new skills. What e-commerce was, what a true marketing department can do, and what those roles are. And even though I may have lost income, that time at that company was valuable to me. I learned a lot. I met a lot of. I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't know what corporate America was like.
Sure.
And then when that ended, I rolled into, and the money started coming back a little bit. Not wealthy by any means, but have a great standard of living, and then we left that place, and now first time in my life, like this past summer, I've been unemployed.
Yeah.
And I took another pay cut to go tell stories again at a cool company to be over a handful of younger creatives. They asked me to come in to mentor them, to train them. And all I have to tell you, I don't have to train them on creativity. I don't have to train them on the equipment, because these young folks are talented. They were just born. I don't know what it is, but they're talented. They could have had this lit 10 times faster than I did.
Yeah.
But I think what I can help them on is helping them believing in themselves, helping them maybe rethink how to schedule a scene or teach them how to work with actors. So it's been I like my trajectory of my career. I started young and I elevated really quickly.
Yeah.
And then midlife I changed career because I wasn't around my family a lot, and I wasn't happy, and I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to be fun again, and that's what I decided, and that's what. So if you like telling stories, and if you like working with fun equipment and electronics, companies have finally realized, they need to make propaganda.
Yeah.
And artists and creatives are the best at making propaganda. And every now and then we can add a little art into that propaganda.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like that. Advertising is just propaganda,
It's
really.
just propaganda. It's just a movie.
It's just a movie.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you love what you're doing.
Yeah, I do.
You have a huge passion for it.
Yeah.
And it clearly shows. It's cool to see someone so passionate about filmmaking, video production.
Yeah.
Whatever path someone is on right now, listening to this or watching this, hopefully there's some sort of takeaway that they're able to glean from your knowledge and expertise.
Find a mentor in everybody.
Find a mentor in everybody. I think that's the best. That's awesome.
You can learn something from everybody.
Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the film industry that I didn't know. I also know that there's probably a whole lot more that could be there that people could learn.
Yep.
And,
Sure.
It sounds like I think maybe I should go talk to the film commission and see if I can learn some more, pick up people's brains.
Maybe we'll have you back for a second episode.
Sure. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
This is awesome.